Subscribe before the truth disappears. The call lasted 42 seconds and said nothing at all. Lena Vaughn watched the waveform crawl across her dispatch screen like a heartbeat trying to remember itself. 2:47 a.m., Hart County, Kentucky. Phase 2 coordinates bounced off a cell tower that rose from a patch of tobacco fields and empty gravel roads. No voice, no road noise, just a drag of static, and once, a soft crunch like someone shifting their weight on loose stone. 911, what's your emergency? She said again. Gentle, trained calm. Static answered. The call died. The system flagged it as an open line, and by the time she logged it, a second alert blinked. Missing person, male, reported at 12:40 a.m. Same phone number. Name, Ethan Cole. Age 36. Wife, Jenna. Last seen leaving the family's shuttered hardware store at 10:18 p.m. for a short drive home. He never made it. Trooper Eli Boyd took the first run. He'd driven those roads his whole life, knew every cattle gate and every switchback where gravel skittered into the ditch. He cut down Bloomfield Pike, radio crackling, windows down to listen for anything that didn't belong. An engine idle, a voice carried by the cool dark. There was nothing but the night and that tower's red pulse winking over the fields. The coordinates landed him at a turnout people used to fish the creek when the water was high. The creek was black glass. The growth along the bank wore last summer's dust. A single set of tire tracks curved into the turnout, bit down, and vanished as if a truck had lifted off. Boyd killed his engine. The world went still. He stood there and felt the silence raise the hair on his arms. Then he heard it, far off, thin as a memory, a low horn he couldn't place, the way sound wanders at night. He turned toward it and saw nothing but tree line, a rag of fog snagged in the branches. He panned his flashlight along the gravel. A plastic coffee lid lay face down, wet with dew. A strip of shiny adhesive clung to a small stone like a bandage that had lost its fight. He bagged both, snapped photos, and called it in. Detective Mara Collins arrived with the county investigator, a thermos, and the tired focus of someone who had learned to fold the night into a corner of her mind and keep working. Collins was 39, ex-Louisville, the kind who read rooms fast and rode shoulders faster. She listened to Boyd's recap and the odd horn, nodded once, and walked the turnout in slow, patient squares. "What do we have?" she asked. "Single set of tracks in, none out. Coffee lid, adhesive strip, no fluid, no drag marks," said Boyd. "No footprints except mine." "Did phone still dark?" Collins asked, Lena on speaker. "Dead since the call. Last ping narrowed to a 20-degree sector off that tower, 1.7 miles radius. That turnout is inside it." "So somebody wanted us to look here," Collins murmured, almost to herself. By first light, the search had become a ritual. Drones over the fields, boats in the creek, deputies walking the fence lines with their palms out like they could feel a truth pass through the wire. They found nothing. No skid into water, no broken branch, no trace of a person who needed help badly enough to dial 911 and then say nothing at all. Collins sat on her bumper, watching her breath fog the air as the sun tried to pry color out of the frost. She called Jenna Cole. Jenna sounded as if she had built a wall around her voice and was speaking through it. "He closes at 10 on Mondays. He texted at 10:07, locking up. You good?" I said yes. He never came home. I tracked his phone at 11. It was near the store, then off. "Any fights?" Collins asked. "Business stress? Anyone upset with him?" "We're behind on the mortgage, but Ethan doesn't vanish. He wouldn't do that to Lacey." Lacey was their 8-year-old who loved stray cats and science kits. "He always answers. He always calls." "Does he know anyone out near Bloomfield Pike?" Collins said. "Anyone he might meet at 2 in the morning?" Jenna hesitated. "There's Nate Briggs, business partner. Been friends since middle school. If Ethan had trouble, he'd call Nate." "Alibi?" Collins asked, writing the name. "And where were you at 10:30? "At home," Jenna said, "with Lacey. Nate will say he was home too. He lives 15 minutes away." "Anyone else?" Collins asked. Jenna took a breath. "There's a man named Cal Weaver. He used to work for us. Ethan let him go 2 weeks ago. Cal didn't take it well." "How not well?" Collins asked. "He said the town keeps its secrets, and Ethan would regret forgetting that." Then he laughed.
That scared me more than the words. Collins had heard that kind of laugh. It came from people who thought they had a plan that made them bigger than their lives. She wrote Cal's name and underlined it. By afternoon, the county judge signed a warrant for business records. Collins and Boyd drove to Cole Hardware, a brick box with a hand-painted sign the sun had faded and the weather had learned to ignore. The alarm panel blinked green. The office in back smelled like dust and cardboard. Ethan's desk held a circle of light where a lamp had sat too long, a coffee ring, and a ledger with a column of red figures like a run of bad luck that had learned to march. Nate Briggs showed up in a rush, breathless, his hair still damp like he had tried to wash the night off and couldn't. He's the kind of man who looked like he knew someone at every bar in 2 counties. "You can't just," he started. "We have a warrant," Collins said, holding it up. "We're not here to hurt your friend. We're here to find him." Nate threw his hands up. Okay, tell me what you need." His schedule, cash flow, any debts, anyone angry, anyone new. Nate's eyes slid to the ledger. "We're behind with a supplier out of Bowling Green. Nothing criminal, just pressure." He rubbed his jaw. "Cal is the only one who made noise, but Cal talks big. He's a small problem with a loud voice." "And you?" Collins asked. "Where were you between 10 and midnight?" "Home," he said. "You can ask Kayla, my wife." "We will," Collins said. When they left, Boyd said, "You buy him?" Collins said, "I buy that he wants us to buy him. There's a difference." The second day brought the helicopters. The third brought rumors that grow in places where the night stretches long. Cartel, trafficking, a cult in the hills. Collins ignored all of it. She walked the map with a pencil and a ruler, marking the tower sector lines, letting math cut through story. On the 4th day, Cal Weaver answered the door of a single wide that leaned like a tired man. He was thin and barefoot and carried a coil of chain in one hand, as if he'd just remembered work existed. He smiled without showing teeth. "You like visiting early," he said. "Where were you Monday night?" Collins asked. "Where I always am, looking for a way out I can afford." "You threaten Ethan Cole?" Boyd asked. Cal shrugged. "Threaten is a strong word. I told him folks keep score. He fired me 2 weeks before Christmas. That's a hard kind of math. Doesn't mean I want him dead." "We didn't say dead," Boyd said. Cal's eyes flicked past Boyd at the patrol car. "Most stories you tell yourselves end that way." Inside, they found nothing but a cot, a hot plate, and a calendar with the days X'd out until the paper pilled. Cal's boots were clean. His sink was not. He signed a consent to search and watched them like a man watching a poker hand he didn't believe in. When they left, Collins noted the coil of chain again. It was new. She went back to the turnout and crouched where the adhesive had lain. Her mind traced possibilities. A phone taped under a car, a call triggered without a hand, a vehicle that came in and did not go out because it was carried away. But by what and where? "Detective?" Boyd called from the tree line. "Got something." He held up a flat rectangle of black plastic he'd found buried in a drift of leaves. A phone mount, the kind that clipped to a dash vent. The plastic was cracked. The clip had broken clean. She bagged it. 40 yards farther, she found a small crescent-shaped scar in the bark of a maple at waist height, sap dried to a pale tear. Opposite the scar, a thicker tire rut cut through the leaves as if a heavy truck had backed up, paused, and then pulled forward slow. That night, rain came cold and straight and scrubbed away even the idea of footprints. The creek rose a thin, brown inch and then settled again. The searchers went home in 2s and 3s. Collins sat with Lena in dispatch, replaying the 42 seconds in a room where the dim light made the monitors feel like moons. "Hear it?" Lena asked, pointing to the long, flat line of static. She slid the volume up a breath. At 23 seconds.
Collins closed her eyes and let the sound live in the dark behind them. Static, a tiny click like a fingernail on plastic, and then something low and far. It wasn't a truck, it wasn't wind through corn. It had a shape to it, a swell and fall, like a sound that had its own idea of time. "Could be a train," Lena said, hesitant, "but the nearest line is 10 miles west." "Sound carries," Collins said. "At night it carries farther. Depends on the air, the ground. We'll ask an analyst." She checked the log again. Caller ID matches the missing man's phone, but the phone was dark by 11, and yet it calls at 2:47. Auto dial? Lena said. Maybe, Collins said, or someone learned his code. At 6:30 the next morning, a deputy named Warren stopped at the turnout to sip coffee and watch the light come up over the fields. He glanced at the fence and frowned. 3 of the strands had been retied recently with new wire. The posts showed fresh bite marks where something heavy had flexed them. He followed the fence line to a maintenance road that ran arrow straight to a gravel yard where the county stored salt and sand. A gate sat there, locked. A padlock, bright and new, hung from a chain that wasn't. "Detective," he radioed, "you want to take a ride?" Collins met him with bolt cutters and a nod from the county works foreman who'd been waiting for someone to notice. She cut the chain, the gate complained, and then opened like a mouth that had been shut too long. Inside, the road descended to a broad, flat pad above the creek. On one side, a row of old concrete culverts. On the other, a ramp that sloped into water the color of tea. The first thing she saw was the track of something wide that had been backed down the ramp recently, pressed deep and clean. The second was the glint. Not oil, glass. A field of tiny, shattered pieces embedded in the mud at the water's edge, like a spilled constellation. They brought in the wrecker. The hook dipped, found, latched. Winches whined. Water sloughed off in sheets. A mid-sized sedan rose slow from the brown. Its front end caved slightly, its license plate bent, a ribbon of riverweed clinging to the mirror like a wristband no one had cut off. "Plates?" Boyd asked. "Temporary. Dealer issue. Could be anyone." They eased the car onto the pad. Collins moved close. Under the rear bumper, gray with silt, a rectangle of residue showed where something had been taped. The adhesive had bled into the metal and kept its shape like a shadow. She crouched and touched it with a gloved finger. This is where the phone sat. Timed call. Staged distress. Someone wanted it to sound like panic, but not sound like anything at all. "Why go to all that trouble?" Boyd asked. "Because if you're quiet enough," Collins said, "people will tell the story for you." A deputy popped the hood latch and then the trunk release. The trunk did not open. It was locked from inside. Collins looked at Boyd. He levered a flat bar under the lip and pried. Metal groaned, the seam gave. "Hold," Collins said. She waited. The sound of the creek, the soft rattle of a distant highway, and then, faintly, that low horn again, drifting through the trees like a breath someone had forgotten. She nodded. Boyd lifted. The trunk shuddered, then rose. Inside, under a wet blanket stacked precisely, lay a hard black case the size of a toolbox. The foam inside was cut to fit a device with a screen and a wave icon stenciled in white. Collins stared at it and felt the case change the shape of the story in her hands. It was a police-issue cell site simulator, and it had been checked out under Ethan Cole's name.
By sunrise, the ramp by the creek was ringed with cruisers. Flashing reds and blues washed the mist in color that didn't belong to the morning. Detective Mara Collins stood at the edge of the water while the techs worked the recovered car like surgeons at a table. She'd been on dozens of scenes, but something about this one made the world feel off, like the landscape itself was trying to look innocent. The black equipment case sat open on a tarp. The tech from the state lab, a quiet man named Draper, ran a gloved finger over the serial plate. "You were right," he said. "Stingray-type simulator, model's about 5 years old, police issue. This thing can mimic a cell tower and force nearby phones to connect." "Meaning someone could spoof a 911 call?" Collins asked. Draper nodded. "If they had the phone and knew what they were doing, yeah. They could route the signal from a fake tower, mask location, make it look like it came from the victim's device. Hell, they could even time it." Boyd frowned. "So that 42-second call wasn't real?" "Oh, it was real," Draper said. "Just not from where we thought." Collins looked back toward the empty field. "Then whoever staged this,
knew how we'd track it. The weight of that landed in her stomach. Only law enforcement or someone with deep connections would have access to such a device. And the tag inside the lid? Property of Hart County Sheriff's Office, equipment checkout log required. The tag had been peeled back, leaving only the adhesive. By noon, the story had spread through every local station. Missing man's car recovered from river. Jenna Cole arrived at the scene, pale and trembling, escorted by a family friend. Colin stepped away from the others to meet her. Jenna's voice cracked before she spoke. "Is he?" "We don't know yet," Colin said softly. "We're still processing the vehicle. Nothing inside matches signs of a crash. It looks like it was pushed." Jenna pressed her palm to her mouth, shaking her head. "He can't be gone. He wouldn't just—" Collins waited. Let the silence hold space for the truth that couldn't yet be said. "Jenna," she said finally, "I need to ask again about Ethan's work. Anything unusual lately? Calls, meetings, people he mentioned?" Jenna hesitated. He'd been getting messages, numbers he didn't recognize, late at night. He'd glance at his phone and go outside to answer them. When I asked, he said it was about the store accounts. I didn't believe him. "You ever hear the name Cal Weaver in those calls?" Collins asked. Jenna blinked. "No, but last week he mentioned a favor he owed Nate. He didn't say what it was." Collins' mind caught on the word favor. A favor worth faking your own distress call? "I don't know," Jenna said. He was scared, not of dying, of being caught. Back at the station, Collins spread the evidence photos across her desk. The adhesive under the bumper, the clean tape marks, the empty trunk, the missing equipment log, the cell phone simulator. Boyd walked in with a coffee. State Forensics ran the plate. The temp tag came from a dealer in Bowling Green. Guess who bought a batch last month? Collins didn't look up. Nate Briggs. Right. He registered them under the store's business account. Says Ethan was going to flip a few used vehicles on the side to make extra cash. Boyd sat down. "You buy that?" "No," Collins said. "But I buy that Ethan didn't plan this alone. Someone helped him stage the call and then made sure he disappeared for real." Boyd took a slow sip. "You're thinking Nate?" "I'm thinking motive. The hardware store's books are a mess. Red ink, missing deposits. The ledger shows a loan taken out 2 weeks before Ethan vanished, co-signed by Nate. Then someone withdrew 10 grand in cash the day after he vanished." "So Ethan's dead and Nate's sitting on the money." "Maybe," Collins said. "Or maybe Ethan staged it himself, tried to vanish clean. But if that's true, why hide the cell phone simulator in a submerged car? Why erase his own name from the log?" Boyd leaned back. "Maybe because the story wasn't going to plan." At 5 p.m., Collins visited Nate's home. His wife Kayla answered the door, eyes red-rimmed. Nate was in the garage, she said, refusing to leave the house. The garage smelled of solvent and metal. Nate was sanding a wooden table that didn't need sanding. "Detective," he said without looking up, "guess you found his car." "Word travels fast," Collins said. "It's a small town." "Too small for secrets," she said. "I need to know about that loan. $10,000 in cash disappeared right after Ethan vanished." He exhaled, hands braced on the table. "We were trying to keep the business afloat. He said it was a short-term transfer. He'd pay it back after we moved some equipment. That's all I know." "Equipment like a police-grade cell simulator?" Collins asked. Nate's eyes lifted slowly. "What?" "We found one in his trunk. Registered to our department. The tag was stripped." Nate's face drained. "Jesus. He said that was some tech he got from a supplier in Nashville. Said it would help him fix something. I didn't ask." "Where were you between 2 and 3 a.m. the night he vanished?" He hesitated. "Home." "Anyone verify that?" "My wife, but she was asleep." "You're not helping yourself," Collins said. "If you were with him, if this was a deal gone bad, now's the time to speak up." "I wasn't," Nate said quietly. "But I think someone else was." "Who?" He swallowed. "Jenna." Collins felt the words settle cold in her chest. "His wife?" "She told Ethan she couldn't do it anymore," Nate said. "He called me that night from the store, said she wanted out. He sounded desperate." "Out of what?" Nate's voice cracked.
Whatever they were planning. I didn't know details, but Ethan said if it went wrong, someone would end up in the river. I thought he meant it as a joke. Collins left the house with a storm behind her eyes. The case was unraveling in two directions at once. A man faking his own disappearance and someone making sure it became real. She stopped at the evidence room to review the dashcam footage from the recovered sedan. The interior camera was fogged with condensation, but after enhancing the audio, a faint sound emerged beneath the hiss of water, the same rhythm they'd heard in the 911 recording. Crunching gravel, then a soft voice. It was a woman's. Barely audible, but there. She played it again, isolating the final second before the feed cut out. The voice whispered one word, drawn out, trembling, almost lost in the static. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a name. Ethan. Collins froze. The timestamp read 2:49:59 a.m., 1 second before the 911 call began. The voice wasn't Jenna's. It belonged to someone else. And whoever she was, she'd been in that car when it went under. When Collins looked up, Boyd was standing in the doorway, his face pale. "We just got a hit on the serial number from the simulator. You're not going to like it." "Try me." "It was signed out of evidence 3 weeks ago, authorized by an officer that doesn't exist anymore." "Meaning?" He swallowed hard. "The signature on the form is Ethan Cole's." Collins stared at him. "He signed out his own death?" Boyd nodded slowly. "Or someone forged his name to make us think he did." A silence hung between them. Thick, electric, dangerous. Outside, the wind carried that low train horn again. And this time, Collins realized, it wasn't coming from the tracks at all. It was playing from a phone left on her desk. The screen lit up. Incoming call. Unknown number. Duration, 0041. 0042. Then silence.
The call stopped at 42 seconds, the same length as Ethan Cole's. Detective Mara Collins stared at the glowing screen, the digits frozen in time, and felt the quiet fill the room like water rising in her lungs. Boyd's voice cut through it. "Tell me that was a prank." She hit playback. Nothing but static again. But this time, the static was cleaner, sharper, as if whoever sent it wanted her to hear every absence of sound. At the 32-second mark, something faint moved beneath the hiss, the same gravel crunch. Then a whisper, not Ethan this time. It was her own name. Mara. Boyd saw her face drain. "What?" She didn't answer. She just played it again and again. Then she shut the phone off. "Trace the origin." "Already on it." He tapped at his laptop, frowning. "Pinged off the same tower as the first call, Bloomfield sector. But get this, it bounced through a repeater registered to the county's emergency training compound. It's government hardware." Collins exhaled, slow. "So, whoever's behind this is inside our system. Or used to be." By morning, the station was a hive of tension. State investigators arrived, the kind with black SUVs and emotionless eyes. Collins briefed them on the timeline, the calls, the recovered equipment, the forged signature. They listened, polite and detached, like people who'd already written their ending. When she mentioned the simulator's serial number, the lead agent, a gray-haired man named Reynolds, exchanged a glance with his partner. "That model was part of a discontinued evidence set, from an internal sting we shut down last year. Supposed to be destroyed." "Destroyed where?" Collins asked. "Pine Hollow Depot, joint training compound off the river." "That's 5 miles from where we found the car," Boyd muttered. Collins leaned forward. "So it was never destroyed?" Reynolds gave her the kind of look reserved for people who've wandered too close to classified lines. "You're off this case, detective. It's federal now." "The hell I am," Collins said. "A man's missing, and now someone's using police tech to mock his death and mine." Reynolds' tone didn't rise. "We'll take it from here." She stared him down until he blinked first. Then she turned, walked out, and didn't stop until the hallway air felt thin. At 2:13 p.m., Boyd caught up to her outside,
where the rain had turned the parking lot into a mirror. "What's the plan?" he asked. "They want us quiet. That means they're close. Reynolds? Maybe. Or someone inside our own office." She glanced back at the station window where a silhouette moved behind the blinds. "We're going to Pine Hollow before they bury what's left." His eyes widened. "But we're going to Pine Hollow before they bury what's left." Boyd shook his head. "You realize if we're wrong, then I'll write the report myself. But if we're right, Ethan Cole isn't dead. He's running an operation we just tripped over." Pine Hollow Depot sat where the forest pressed down on the river's curve. All barbed wire and forgotten buildings that once trained officers to track meth labs and fugitives. The main gate hung open. The "authorized personnel only" sign had rusted into a whisper. They parked by the range tower, their boots sinking in mud. The rain had washed fresh tire ruts up to a long, low building marked "Evidence Storage. Do not enter." Inside smelled of mold and something older: oil, paper, and electricity. Rows of steel cages lined the walls, tags curling from years of humidity. Boyd's flashlight found a broken lock. He said, "Someone's been here." Collins knelt beside a set of fresh prints on the concrete. Heavy boots, deep tread, leading toward the back. She said, "Two people, one dragging something." They followed the tracks past crates marked training materials to a door half buried behind filing cabinets. It opened into a stairwell descending into dark. Boyd swallowed. No power down there. Good. Whoever's running this won't expect visitors. The basement felt like an echo chamber. Bare walls, puddles, a faint mechanical hum that didn't match the age of the place. They moved toward it slow. The hum grew sharper. Then the room opened wide. Racks of equipment blinking faint blue in the dark, cables snaking across the floor. In the center sat a workstation, 3 monitors, 1 camera, and a laptop running a looping waveform. 42 seconds long. Boyd's voice was barely a whisper. "They're recreating the call." Collins stepped closer. The screen displayed timestamps from multiple nights. The original call, her call, others they hadn't heard yet. Dozens of test files labeled with times and coordinates. She scrolled up. The earliest entry was dated October 12th, the day Ethan Cole was officially declared missing. A folder at the top read, "Field Audio, Training, 911, Echo, Project." She clicked it. Video filled the screen. Ethan Cole sat at a metal table, pale, unshaven, a recorder before him. "This isn't a hoax. This is proof. They're using our test system to cover disappearances, not simulate them. When this goes out, you'll know the truth." He looked off screen, tense. "If they find me, it won't matter, but the data is in the static. They think it's just noise. It's not. It's coordinates." The clip ended abruptly. Boyd stared. "Coordinates? You think—" Collins grabbed a notepad, freezing the frame on the waveform's first spike. "The pattern's Morse," she said, her voice tightening. She embedded longitude and latitude in the sound. They translated the pulses by hand. Short, long, pause. When she finished, Boyd whistled. "That's less than a mile from here." They moved fast, out the door, through the mud, up a service trail that ended at a clearing overlooking the river bend. There, half buried in weeds, stood an old rail shed, its roof collapsed, its door chained. The air smelt faintly of diesel. Collins cut the chain. Inside, her flashlight found another car, a newer sedan, spotless despite the dust. The trunk was open. Inside lay a duffel bag, a laptop, and an ID badge clipped to the strap. The badge read, "Detective Ethan Cole, Internal Affairs Division." Boyd whispered, "Was he a cop?" "Undercover, working his own department." She powered on the laptop. It loaded a single file, a recording dated 2 nights before the call. Ethan's voice, again, urgent, afraid. "They know. If this message reaches the wrong hands, they'll bury me under a different name. Collins, if you hear this, you were right not to trust the department. The call wasn't a mistake. It was a test. They needed to know how long it takes a lie to sound like truth." The recording ended with a metallic clang, a door, a struggle, then the sound of gravel. The same crunch they'd heard in the original call. Boyd looked at her. "So who killed him?" Collins shook her head slowly. "He's not dead. Not yet." They followed the sound outside, faint, mechanical, real this time.
A low horn rolled across the trees, growing louder. Not a train, a generator kicking on. From the riverbank below, headlights flared through the fog. 2 vehicles, one black SUV, one unmarked van. "Federal," he hissed. "No, not the real kind." Men stepped out, faces half-shadowed. The lead carried a radio handset identical to the one she'd seen in the basement. "Detective Collins, you found what wasn't meant to be found. Step away." She raised her badge. "You're obstructing a state investigation." The man smiled. "You're off to your own story." He lifted the handset. The same static hiss burst from the radio, loud, disorienting. 42 seconds of chaos. Collins felt her phone vibrate and sync. Boyd shouted something, but the air was swallowed by the noise. Then a shotgun split the night. Silence returned. The men were gone, the vehicles too. Only tire tracks remained, leading back toward the depot. Boyd's radio crackled once, a voice barely audible through static. "Mara." It was Ethan again. Weak, distant. "North Tunnel. They're coming." Then nothing. By dawn, Pine Hollow burned. The storage building went up first, then the basement. The fire crews called it electrical. Collins called it erasure. She stood by the guardrail, wind cutting through her coat, watching the smoke carry secrets that would never make it to court. Boyd joined her, bandaged hand trembling slightly. "So what do we tell them?" he asked. "The truth. And then we see who tries to silence it." He nodded once, and, "Ethan." Collins looked at the horizon where the red of morning bled into gray. "He tried to warn us. His call wasn't a cry for help. It was a breadcrumb." She opened her phone. A new voicemail sat unsaved, time-stamped 2:47 a.m., the same time the original call had come in. She pressed play. Static filled the air, then Ethan's voice, soft, fading. "You're listening to the 43rd second. What they never let play." Then a final sound, a train horn, distant and echoing, and the line went dead. Collins closed her eyes. Sometimes the truth doesn't vanish. It waits, exactly 42 seconds, before calling back. If you thought this one was wild, wait for the next. Hit subscribe before the truth disappears.